Look at that queen. She is going down in a flash, and it looks like just one set able to take out the archer queen. That is a massive victory for the pumpkin barbarians versus the archer queen. Welcome to today's Clash of Clans video, guys. I'm your host, Judo Sloth. We're going to take the brand new Pumpkin Barbarian and verse it off against the regular Barbarian here in the developer build, so that you know exactly why you should be using the Pumpkin Barbarian for this limited time instead of the regular Barbarian. So we're going to attack every defense in the game so that you can see the difference between these two troops. If you do find this video helpful, guys, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Clash of Clans gameplay. Let's get into it then. First, kicking off here with the cannon. Here we are then, guys. We'll start out with the cannon, then move through every defense, but you'll see pretty quickly why you should be using the Pumpkin Barbarian instead of the regular Barbarian. So as we put them in, regular Barbarian at the bottom, Pumpkin Barbarian at the top, you can see that it straight away requires an extra shot. And now that's because the Pumpkin acts as a helmet, a piece of armor for the Barbarian. And irrespective of how much health that Pumpkin gives the Barbarian, it still requires the defense to actually pop it off before it can start shooting at the Barbarian. So naturally, it's going to be better to use the Pumpkin Barbarian instead of the regular Barbarian. Now you can see as we move through here and put more Barbarians in, the cannon at the top will slowly fall behind the cannon at the bottom because it just can't keep up. It requires an extra shot to take down the Barbarian. Now, clearly, this is a massive advantage. Now, you would think that it would cost a little bit more for these troops, but no. For the Halloween event, for this limited time, you will actually get the Pumpkin Barbarian for the exact same cost as the regular Barbarian. So naturally, it makes sense, guys. Cook up the Pumpkin Barbarian. You can see the difference taking out the cannon at the top, whereas the one at the bottom with the regular Barbarians barely has any health off it. Let's move on though to the Archer Tower. Let's attack the Archer Tower then, and again, guys, you'll see pretty quickly here how the Pumpkin Barbarian is just so much more effective. Just look at how many shots it is able to tank instead of the regular Barbarian. Now, what I want you to get from this video is purely, use the Pumpkin Barbarians. They're so much more effective because, again, irrespective of how much health that Pumpkin actually gives the Barbarian, it requires an extra shot. The Barbarian comes out of that with full health. So even if that Pumpkin only gave the Barbarian 1 health, it would still make the Barbarian come out of the other side with 100% health. So the damage isn't then transitioned onto the Barbarian. It comes out of that with 100% health. So for that reason, with these point defenses, it takes them an entire extra shot, irrespective. Even if that Archer Tower did 1 gazillion million damage, it would still take an extra shot for the Barbarian because it requires it to pop off the Pumpkin. And you can see, just look at the damage on them. Let's check out the Archer Tower at the top. Check out the damage on that. These are both level 15 Archer Towers. Look at the difference, guys. Both max level Archer Towers, both using the Barbarians, which cost the exact same amount to cook during this Halloween update. And there you are, guys. That is just how much more effective they are. How will they fare against a splash damage defense, though? Let's test out the Wizard Tower. Check that out. It just didn't get it down. Let's throw one more in to hopefully get one hit. Not enough. Come on, I'm determined to get this Archer Tower before we move on to the Wizard Tower. There you are, guys. Pumpkin Barbarians, again, a clear victor in this battle. Okay, guys, let's move on to the Wizard Towers. Now, in relation to splash damage defenses, this is where things change just a little bit. So as we move forward with the Barbarian and the Pumpkin Barbarian, you will see, depending on how the Wizard Tower actually hits the Barbarian, it can actually transition damage onto that barbarian itself. It doesn't necessarily just have to pop the pumpkin off like it did with the point defense. It can actually do the damage onto the barbarians as well, and the more pumpkin barbarians we'll put in, the more you see that that is actually the case. So this is where the pumpkin barbarians are a little bit more balanced, because obviously in a realistic base you have a set amount of splash damage around the base itself, whether it be from the wizard towers, the bomb towers, the eagle artillery, anything like that will actually do this damage to the regular barbarians. Now clearly it still follows the same principle in that the pumpkin barbarians is going to give you a better advantage than the regular barbarians, because if they take any shots from a point defense, you're at an advantage there, you've seen that. But in relation to splash damage, there's no clear victor. They're actually exactly the same, but still, for the same cost, you'd want to use the pumpkin barbarians, guys. Let's move on to another splash damage defense, in that of the bomb tower. Alright guys, now the bomb tower, being a splash damage defense, works exactly the same as the wizard tower. So you'll see as the barbarians come through, the pumpkin barbarian, the damage which is dealt, is transitioned onto the barbarian that comes out of it. So unlike the point defense, which is required to pop the pumpkin off, the damage is then transitioned onto the barbarian. So this is where the health of the pumpkin itself is beneficial, but obviously to make the barbarian balanced, it's not a great amount of health that you actually get from the pumpkin, but it certainly does help against them point defense. So again, very minimal with the bomb tower. It still takes 3 shots here at max level to take out the regular barbarian and the pumpkin barbarian, so they are exactly the same. As you saw with the point defense, the pumpkin barbarian was a clear winner in this challenge, but with the splash damage defenses, there's not actually much difference. It's pretty much exactly the same. As we move through here, then you'll see that irrespective of how many we push in, they do get to take out the bomb tower because they surround it, but it's exactly the same, the barbarian and the pumpkin barbarian. Let's move back to a point defense though, so you can see the difference between these troops. Let's move on to the Expos then, one of them stronger defenses, but again one of the point defenses. You will see the difference against the barbarians. Now I do have them in air mode here just so that they don't transition between barbarians and start crossfiring, but you can see that the health of the pumpkin is enough to actually tank a couple of extra shots from the Expo than the barbarians at the bottom. So the pumpkin's definitely helpful here with the pumpkin barbarians. Look at how much further they get than the regular barbarians. So again, you can see the pumpkin barbarians so much stronger in this battle, starting to get some hits onto the Expo there, but as we push them all in, or a good number of them anyway, you'll see the damage that the barbarians can get onto that Expo when there's no splash damage defenses around. So check out the one at the bottom. The barbarians are already out, whereas the pumpkin barbarians continue to do work on the Expo at the top. As we continue pushing them in, you will see that the pumpkin barbarians continue to be able to tank them extra shots. And again guys, it doesn't actually cost you any more for the pumpkin barbarians than it does the barbarians. They're exactly the same cost, coop time, everything like that. So if there's splash damage defenses, they don't give you a great amount of benefit. However, when you're attacking a base, they're going to be taking hits from point defense at some point in the battle, so it's obviously going to benefit you. In this video, you can see how the pumpkin barbarian is so much of a better troop. Very close to taking out the Expo there, but not quite enough. Even if we put all the rest of the 13 in, I highly doubt that the regular barbarians will take out the Expo at the bottom, but the pumpkin barbarians absolutely smash this max level Expo, even going to move down to try and help the other barbarians who unfortunately cannot take out that Expo. Let's move on though to the Infernal towers. Let's attack the multi-Infernal first guys, but this is where it's going to be very difficult for the barbarians. You can see though that it works exactly the same here in terms of a point defense. It has to go through the pumpkin first before it gets to the barbarians, so a clear advantage for the pumpkin barbarians. Look at how much closer they get to that Inferno tower. The more we put in, the closer they will be able to get. So let's push 10 of them in. See, the regular barbarians, they don't even get to the Inferno tower, whereas the pumpkin barbarians start doing a little bit of damage. Let's put 15 in, guys. 15 pumpkin barbarians, 15 regular barbarians, and see how much damage they get. The regular barbarians didn't even get a shot off. The pumpkin barbarians, though, are going to get the Inferno tower. Gets a little bit of health off, but not much. How about 25, guys? Let's go for 25. Having to put them in very slowly there in case I overshoot this, but 25 of each. The regular barbarians should get a decent amount of health on that Inferno tower. You can see they get it down to about half health, but the pumpkin barbarians absolutely smash this. Multi-Inferno down. Much greater there for the pumpkin barbarians. Definitely advantage. Let's go to the single Infernos before we move on to the hidden Teslas. Okay, so for the single targeting Inferno, we should be able to get through this a little bit quicker than the multi-targeting Inferno, purely because of the nature of it. But something very interesting happens here with the pumpkin barbarians. Unlike the other point defense, it actually has an even greater advantage, and that is that once the pumpkin has been popped off by the single targeting Inferno, it actually resets its charge, so it doesn't even get a chance to pop into the second stage of its charge. But when it then moves on to the barbarian, which has full health, it actually resets right the way back to the start. So that's a massive advantage, really. The regular barbarians, it just continues to clock through them. Now, it's not, you know, it's only a barbarian. Once it gets to that second stage, it's going to shred through it anyway. But it does give you an extra couple of milliseconds. And through the barbarians, the more that you have surrounding the single targeting Inferno, that's obviously an advantage. Let's throw 10 of them forward. You can see that the regular barbarians struggling very much compared to the pumpkin barbarians. So again, you can see just the advantage you will have by cooking up the pumpkin barbarians. Again, guys, it's not going to help you massively, let's say, in war attacks, but for farming, especially the lower town hall levels where you don't even have to deal with the Inferno towers, etc., you are going to be at a big advantage. So use them troops, guys. Alright guys, we're going to battle the Tesla now. Need to get them popped up first, but you can see, being a point defense, it is exactly the same. It requires that extra shot in order to pop off the pumpkin of the pumpkin barbarian, so that is where again you have the advantage. The barbarian at the top there not quite able to get any hits onto the Tesla, but as we put more of them in, you'll see the Tesla at the bottom just shredding through the regular barbarians. The pumpkin barbarians though able to get quite a few hits onto that Tesla, and obviously has a clear advantage here. Clearly, as we go through the video here, you'll start to understand the differences. The point defense, the pumpkin barbarians win outright, whereas the splash defense, they're pretty much exactly the same. Let's move on to the Mortar, which will be the final defense before we move on to the heroes. Alright guys, we will feature the Mortars being a ground-based defense, but once the barbarians get close enough, it's actually going to be the opposite Mortar which shoots across, so it's going to get a little bit confusing. That's why I've left this right until the end, and it actually looks like they're out of range. I thought that the barbarians would have been within range across the sides, but as you can see, there's not going to be a difference. In terms of damage, the pumpkin barbarian doesn't do any extra damage. It's purely that it has extra health from that helmet. Now, we are going to skip over the air defense, the air sweeper, anything that can't shoot at the barbarians, because it's pretty pointless. Let's move on though to the Barbarian King. Okay guys, we nearly forgot about the Eagle Artillery, one of the best defenses that you guys will want to see, the Barbarian versus the Pumpkin Barbarian. So we have it activated. We've already used a bunch of troops. Let's get 5 regular Barbarians in and see the damage that it does. You can see that it wipes them out. That one Barbarian there, that heroic Barbarian, able to dodge the fire, just didn't quite have them on the same area. But let's then go ahead and put the Pumpkin Barbarians in. so you can see exactly what the difference is. Now remember guys, the Eagle Artillery is a splash damage defense onto that area, so you can see that the exact same thing happens. Spawns the Barbarian at the end there, but it's exactly the same as the Wizard Tower, as the Bomb Tower, them splash damage defenses. The Barbarian and the Pumpkin Barbarian, exactly the same for this one. Let's move on though to the heroes. Before we do that, let's get revenge on this Eagle Artillery. Spread them in where they cannot hit them. We're going to have to test out the Barbarian King, the Archer Queen, and the Grand Warden separate, guys, since we can't have them side by side, but let's give it our best shot. Here we are then guys, the Barbarian King. How we're going to test this is we'll put 10 Barbarians in at a time. We'll move on to the Pumpkin Barbarians once the Barbarians have taken down their King. But we'll see how many sets of 10 it takes in order to take each of them down and see if there is actually a difference. So the first set gets a decent amount of health on the Barbarian King. Obviously, if we were to test this in single numbers, you know, there might be a bit of a difference, but we're not going to drag this on forever, guys. So I've decided sets of 10 is probably the best way to test this. There is 2 sets, so that's 20 Barbarians have attacked the King so far, and he's already down to around about just over a third health. So this set might not take him down, guys. Let's just see. Will the Pumpkin Barbarians be any better than this? I'm not too sure how it'll work with heroes, but as you can see, that is 30 Barbarians are in. It required a 4th set in order to take down the King. Let's test that though, and verse it off against the Pumpkin Barbarians. Here we are then guys, the Pumpkin Barbarians. It took 40 regular Barbarians in order to take down that King. Let's just see the difference though with the Pumpkin Barbarians as they come forward. Looks like that's a gravestone straight away. However, you can see the regular Barbarians are actually spawning from this, and the King already down to about half health. So it looks like the Pumpkin Barbarians versus the heroes have absolutely smashed this. Will it only be 1 set to take down this King? It's pretty close, guys, and it looks like they just didn't manage it. But as we bring in, even if we just, I aimed for 5 there, overshot it, even if we just bring in a couple more Barbarians, you will see just how much more effective the Pumpkin Barbarians are. They have certainly won this challenge versus the regular Barbarians. So guys, use the Pumpkin Barbarians. Let's verse them off though against the Archer Queen. I have to say, that was very impressive by the Pumpkin Barbarians versus the Barbarian King. But let's test out the Archer Queen then. She's going to be able to take down the Barbarians that little bit quicker, but she does have a lot less health than the Barbarian King. As we start out though, she's done pretty well here against the regular Barbarians, only losing a smidgen of health, and I think that is a lot less than what the Barbarian King had lost in the opening round. So that is 20 Barbarians so far, guys. There is 30 running forward to the Queen there, and they're going to get her down to just below half health, so we'll definitely be able to complete this challenge. But again, which one is going to be better? If it's anything like the Barbarian King, the Pumpkin Barbarians absolutely smashed the regular Barbarians out of the water. That is 40 Barbarians. We're going to need 50 here, the 5th set of 10 coming in order to get the Queen. What do you think, guys? I'm pretty sure the Pumpkin Barbarians can beat that. Let's test it out though. 5 sets then of 10 Barbarians were required to take out the Archer Queen. Let's just check it out though. The Pumpkin Barbarians, you can see they are popping into the regular Barbarians, so they're going to get so much extra damage. Look at that Queen. She is going down in a flash, and it looks like just 1 set able to take out the Archer Queen. That is a massive victory for the Pumpkin Barbarians versus the Archer Queen. That was insane, guys. 1 single set of 10 Pumpkin Barbarians able to take down the Archer Queen. Let's move on to the final defense here, the final part of this challenge. I think for the most part, the Pumpkin Barbarians have certainly you know, they've beat the Barbarians in almost every aspect. Just the splash damage defenses that they have struggled, and it hasn't really had that much of a difference with the Grand Warden, though. It's certainly a different type of defense. Only 2 sets of Barbarians are going to be required, 2 sets of 10, in order to take that down. Let's see if we can again, though, only need 1 set of the Pumpkin Barbarians before we wrap up this video. The final challenge: will the Pumpkin Barbarians take out the Grand Warden with just 10 of them? As they move forward, you can see it does require that extra shot to pop off the Pumpkin, so we can be pretty confident they are going to take it down, and it has gone down in a flash, guys. That wraps it up for this video. Good job, because we only have 5% battery. Make sure to leave a like if you have enjoyed it, and subscribe for more Clash of Clans. I've been your host, Judo Sloth, and until next time, peace out, guys.